Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. Well, we are right smack dab in the middle of the week since it is Wednesday, and we're also right smack dab in the middle of the month of July. So, since it is the middle of the month and the middle of the week on a Hump Day Wednesday, it's time for another weekly top 10 countdown. And last week, I did top 10 cities that people are moving to, according to some research that just came in from 2023. So, I found it fitting and only logical that this week, on today's top 10 countdown, we're going to talk about the top 10 cities people are leaving. And of course, if you've been to any of these cities, then you'll understand why people are leaving. And even if you have not been to any of these cities, if you've heard stories about any of these cities, then you understand why people are leaving. Number 10 is Detroit. Number 9, Denver. Number 8, Philadelphia. Number 7, Boston. And number 6, Chicago. Now, I will say that Detroit's always had a very high crime rate and a very high cost of living rate. And Philadelphia has always been a huge crime area, and so has Chicago. But Boston, to my knowledge, is not. I mean, I'm sure with the amount of people that live in Boston, it has a high crime rate, but I don't think the average per capita is as bad as Detroit, Philadelphia, Chicago, places like that. Denver, my only guess is from people that I've talked to and stories that I've read and stories that I've heard about people that have been to not just Denver but Colorado in general. They say it's a beautiful state if you like the mountains, because almost the entire state is covered in mountains. But they say there's just absolutely nothing to do there, and it's so cold almost all year long. So unless you like cold weather, you're not going to like living there. I mean, there have been times that Colorado has gotten snow in April, even times they've gotten snow in September. So honestly, really, truly, outside of maybe May, June, and July, outside of those 3 months, the other 9 months out of the year, it's liable to snow in Colorado. But if you've ever been to the Blue Ridge Mountains or anything like that, and you think that's pretty, you would love living in Colorado just for the view. I'm just not sure what you would do there. But again, 10 through 6 is Detroit, Denver, Philadelphia, Boston, and Chicago. Number 5 is Washington, D.C. I can never live there because that's where we know the White House is, and I 100% completely despise politics. So I could never live in a state that was all about politics. I would absolutely drive myself crazy. Number 4, Seattle. Number 3, New York City. Number 2, San Francisco. And of course, number 1 is Los Angeles. Now, a quick backstory on Los Angeles. No, I've never been there. No, I'll never go there. I have no desire to go to the West Coast. But my grandparents on my mother's side, funny story about them is my grandpa is originally from Oklahoma. My grandmother is originally from Livonia, Georgia, but they actually met in California. And I have listened to them in the past talk about how bad California was back in the 60s and 70s. So I can imagine how bad it is now. But even back then, they said you'd be going down the road and people would knock on your door of your car or knock on the window of your car trying to buy drugs off of you on the side of the street. And if it was that bad 55, 60 years ago, you can imagine how bad it is now. And they said people would walk up and down the street with guns in their hands 60 years ago, and you just didn't feel safe walking outside. But I couldn't live there because traffic, I hate traffic. I would rather drive 20 miles out of the way than sit still. I despise sitting still. In any big city like Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York City, not happening. I had an uncle one time go to New York City and said in an hour and a half, the car he was in moved 8 car lengths. No danger in me going there. If I got to sit still, I'm not going. In Los Angeles, same way. Matter of fact, I'm so bad that one day last week I was leaving my job and a red light that I have to go through every day had stopped me. Normally when that light turns red, I'm 5 or 6 cars back, and I know that when it turns green, I'll beat the light. But on this particular day, which I believe was last Friday, but don't quote me on that, the light turned red, and I was about 30 cars back. And about halfway back was an 18-wheeler. And I said, when that light turns green, maybe half of these cars are going to get by, and it's going to turn red again, and I've got to sit again. Forget this. I'll go around. So I got over and went around and went through another city out of the way. It's only about 5 or 6 minutes longer to get home, but I did it. If it takes me 20 minutes extra to get home, if I can avoid sitting still, I'll do it. I cannot stand to sit still, and that's why I said last week, there's no danger in me ever going to any of these cities. Last week, the top 10 cities people are moving to, and this week, top 10 cities people are leaving. Every one of them are major cities. Not for me. Back in the day before I got in the wrestling business, when I was going to Clemson football games, if the game was at noon, I would get there between 5:30 and 6 o'clock Saturday morning. And that's not an exaggeration. That's the honest to God's truth. If the game was 8 o'clock p.m., I was getting there by 11:30, 12 o'clock noon. Even though you can't go in the stadium that early, and I don't drink and I don't party, so I'm not going to drink. I'm going to avoid traffic. If I've got to get there 8 hours early to beat traffic, I'll sit in my car. I don't care. But I cannot stand to be in my car going down the road and get stuck in traffic. It absolutely drives me crazy. So for the noon games, I was there about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. Now, I'm talking 20 years ago when Clemson was only a 7-win team, maybe 8 wins on occasion, and the stadium held 5,000 or 6,000 fewer people. So I can imagine if I was doing that back then when they were only an average team, now that they're annually about a top 10 team every year, if they played at noon and I got to go, I'd probably be there about 4 o'clock in the morning. But I don't care. I'll sit in my car. I can't stand to get stuck in traffic. Any thoughts on any of this, please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. When you dream in color, it's a pigment of your imagination. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.